Charlotte Hayes had always dreamed of a fairy tale love story. Before meeting Lucas Monroe, her life was calm and predictable, managing campaigns at a small advertising agency, living in a charming apartment in Boston, and spending Sunday dinners with her parents in the suburbs. Lucas was the man who shattered the routine of her life, an ambitious and charismatic architect with a captivating smile and an aura of mystery that completely drew her in. Their whirlwind romance peaked in a wedding within a year, a ceremony that felt like a dream come true. For their honeymoon, Lucas took her to a secluded mountain retreat in Montana, a glass chalet perched atop the mountains, surrounded by pristine, snow-covered landscapes that seemed untouched by time. Lucas was the perfect husband. He lit the fireplace until the whole room glowed with warmth, brewed her coffee exactly the way she liked it, and left her sweet love notes in unexpected places. Every action was filled with devotion, making Charlotte feel as though she was living in her dream world. But on the third day of their perfect getaway, Lucas suddenly announced that he had to leave for a while due to an urgent work matter. His tone was casual, but his words felt strange to Charlotte. Work? Here? Still, she smiled and saw him off at the door, pushing aside a vague sense of unease that she dismissed as her imagination. To occupy herself, Charlotte decided to unpack their belongings and organize the chalet. While going through Lucas's luggage, her fingers brushed against a hidden side pocket she hadn't noticed before. Curiosity got the better of her, and she carefully opened it. Inside, she found a slim folder. The first thing that caught her eye was a name neatly written on a piece of paper. Ethan Cole. It wasn't Lucas's name. Her heartbeat quickened as she flipped through the pages. There were bank statements linked to accounts she had never heard of, faded photos of IDs bearing Lucas's face, but with different names, and documents referring to properties in states she hadn't known he had ever visited. At the bottom of the folder were clippings from old newspapers. Each one detailed the disappearance of a woman in Seattle, Denver, and Chicago. A chill ran down her spine as she noticed that the dates of these disappearances aligned with large financial transactions on the bank statements. Panic began to settle in her chest. The warm, cozy chalet now felt suffocating. Her mind raced to make sense of the horrifying discovery. Could it be possible that Lucas, her Lucas, was hiding something far darker than she could have ever imagined? With trembling hands, Charlotte put the documents back where she had found them. She needed help, but who could she trust? The first person that came to mind was Abby Morgan, her best friend from college, who now worked as a criminal defense attorney. Abby's calm, logical nature had always been a source of comfort to Charlotte during difficult times. When Abby received the photos of the documents, her response was swift and direct. After conducting a quick search, she confirmed that the name Ethan Cole was tied to ongoing police investigations related to missing persons. Some of the women in the newspaper clippings had disappeared under eerily similar circumstances, alone, in remote locations, with no trace left behind. Abby's advice was clear. Act normal. Don't let him suspect you know anything. Collect evidence and stay safe. Charlotte did her best to remain composed. When Lucas returned to the chalet that evening, he was as loving and attentive as ever. He kissed her forehead and joked about how the meeting had taken longer than expected. But now, every glance, every word, every smile felt different. Her devoted husband had become a stranger, and the walls of the chalet, once their sanctuary, now felt like a golden cage. What Charlotte didn't know was that uncovering the truth about Lucas would lead her down a path she could never have imagined. A journey filled with danger, where her survival would depend on her courage, her wit, and the fragile trust she placed in those she turned to for help. After receiving the documents from Abby Morgan, the police launched a preliminary investigation that revealed horrifying truths. Before meeting Charlotte Hayes, Lucas Monroe had lived in different cities under various aliases. In one of these cities, Denver, a woman named Emily Carter had disappeared under mysterious circumstances. The evidence provided by Charlotte began to paint a grim picture of Lucas's past. At the chalet, Charlotte noticed troubling changes in Lucas's behavior. He frequently left the house without explanation and used his phone less often in her presence. Though these details seemed small and insignificant, they were enough to convince Charlotte that her husband was hiding something. Over time, more evidence emerged linking Lucas to several cases of missing women. It became clear to Charlotte that she was no longer just a witness, but a key player in uncovering the truth, and perhaps the only one who could stop this man. The police focused on the documents Charlotte had provided. The alias Ethan Cole, found in the documents, was linked to an unresolved case involving the disappearance of Emily Carter in Denver. This case had remained a mystery for years. But the new evidence revealed that the incident was no coincidence. Financial records also uncovered large transactions made around the time of the victims' disappearances, showing a deliberate and meticulous pattern involving fake identities and constant movement between cities. Under Abby Morgan's guidance, Charlotte decided to take action herself. She installed a small hidden camera in the chalet to monitor Lucas's behavior. Fully aware that even the slightest mistake could expose her suspicions, she operated with extreme caution. She placed the camera in a concealed spot that recorded everything without drawing Lucas's attention. Lucas seemed oblivious to the camera's presence and continued his usual behavior. But Charlotte noticed subtle changes. He started leaving the house for longer periods, and his phone calls became shorter and more cryptic. Charlotte meticulously documented these moments to provide the police with further evidence. But soon, something else caught Charlotte's attention. She began to feel that she herself was being watched. A black car with tinted windows appeared multiple times near the chalet, and the driver never stepped out. One night, as she looked out into the dark forest surrounding the chalet, she felt as though someone was watching her from the trees. In a state of panic, she immediately called Abby Morgan. Abby relayed this information to the police and urged them to accelerate their investigation. It became clear to everyone that Charlotte's life was in real danger. With each passing day, she felt she was inching closer to a critical moment when the hidden threats would be exposed without mercy. Meanwhile, the police continued tracking Lucas's financial records and movements. They tried to follow his steps, but his skill at evading detection always kept him one step ahead. Despite their efforts, his precise whereabouts during the victims' disappearances remained a mystery. The tension reached its peak when Lucas suddenly suggested leaving the chalet and moving to another city. He claimed they needed a fresh start. Although his explanation sounded reasonable, the sudden timing of this proposal alarmed Charlotte. She knew it wasn't just about a change of scenery. It was an attempt to bury something deeper and darker. Charlotte's fears were confirmed when she discovered that a flash drive containing copies of important documents had gone missing. It was clear that someone had found her evidence. She realized that every move she made from now on could be critical. The police made a major breakthrough when they discovered a crucial lead: an isolated farm in a remote area of Montana, registered under the name Ethan Cole. This property wasn't listed in Lucas's official records, and he had never mentioned it to Charlotte. The police decided to send a search team immediately. What they found there was beyond anything they had imagined. Personal belongings believed to belong to Lauren Shepard were discovered, along with a map marking key investigation sites. These findings became pivotal evidence and confirmed Lucas's involvement in the disappearances. The police immediately contacted Charlotte to warn her of the danger she faced. Meanwhile, Abby Morgan continued to support her friend, advising her to take strict precautions. Despite the warnings, an unexpected turn of events occurred at Charlotte's home. She suddenly realized that the flash drive containing copies of the evidence had disappeared. The thought that Lucas might have discovered her suspicions filled the air with dread. That night, Lucas entered the bedroom where Charlotte was holding her phone. The silence between them was heavy with tension. Her heartbeat was so loud she thought he might hear it. He said nothing, only stood there for a moment before leaving the room, intensifying her fear. Charlotte knew time was running out, and she had to act quickly to protect herself. The next day, while Charlotte was gathering her belongings, she overheard Lucas speaking on the phone. His voice was cold and harsh. She caught fragments of the conversation. "Prepare everything. I'll be there soon." Then he left the house without explaining where he was going. Certain that the situation had spiraled out of control, Charlotte called the police and reported everything that had happened in the past few hours. When Lucas returned home, he found Charlotte preparing to leave. A brief but tense conversation ensued, during which Lucas insisted that moving to a new city was the only way for a fresh start. His tone was firm, almost aggressive, deepening her fears. Charlotte realized her escape plan could fail if she didn't find a way to leave unnoticed. That night, after Lucas fell asleep, she tried to sneak out of the house, but she found the front door locked from the inside. Suddenly, she heard a faint noise behind her. Lucas was standing there in the dim light, his imposing shadow silhouetted against the windows lit by moonlight. The tension was unbearable. He asked coldly, "Did you think I didn't know?" Charlotte knew the situation had reached the point of no return. She bolted toward the nearest door and ran into the dark forest. After a frantic sprint, she reached a neighbor's house and immediately called the police. When officers arrived at the chalet, Lucas had disappeared. The house bore signs of a struggle, with scattered belongings and an ominous atmosphere suggesting someone was still lurking in the shadows. Following Lucas's disappearance, the police intensified their search, focusing on the evidence found at the farm. Investigators confirmed that the personal items belonged to Lauren Shepard, one of the missing women, and that the markings on the map matched locations linked to other unsolved disappearances. These discoveries became conclusive evidence tying Lucas to multiple cases. However, his skill in vanishing and covering his tracks made the investigation increasingly challenging. Specialists, including forensic analysts and behavioral experts, were called in to assist. Charlotte was placed under witness protection, as ensuring her safety became a top priority, given that Lucas might attempt to silence her as the only witness with direct evidence against him. Abby Morgan remained Charlotte's main point of contact with the police, continuing to provide legal support, coordinate evidence, and call in additional resources for the investigation. Meanwhile, the police uncovered another hideout belonging to Lucas, a dilapidated barn in a neighboring state. Inside the barn, they found photos and video recordings proving he had been surveilling his victims for months. Among his belongings was a list of names, dates, and addresses. Some of these notes hinted at new potential targets, adding urgency to the hunt for him. The videos revealed how Lucas infiltrated his victims' lives, adopting different identities to appear as a trustworthy and successful man. Investigators began reconstructing Lucas's movements over the past several years. He had been constantly changing cities, homes, and social circles, making him an elusive target. In every new city he moved to, Lucas's victims were always successful and independent women. After meeting him, they would gradually begin to trust him, revealing their secrets. The police concluded that his charm and adaptability allowed him to manipulate those around him with ease. During his time on the run, Lucas changed his appearance and created fake social media accounts to stay connected with potential victims. He carefully selected his targets, always successful women who were emotionally vulnerable. As investigators tracked his online activity, they realized he might be planning his next move. Despite being under witness protection, Charlotte never felt safe. She knew how cunning Lucas was and anticipated that he would find a way to track her down, no matter the precautions. The police warned her that her role in the investigation was critical and that she couldn't back out. She continued to provide information, recalling even the smallest details from her life with Lucas, hoping they would aid the case. New leads emerged when one of the women on Lucas's list contacted the police, reporting strange attempts to reach her. This development became a pivotal turning point, allowing the authorities to pinpoint Lucas's possible location. Yet, Lucas always managed to stay one step ahead. The investigators narrowed their search, analyzing his recent communications and movements. Using data found in his previous hideouts, they deduced that he was headed to California. Analysts believed he had already chosen his next target and was closing in on committing another crime. Monica Blakely, a successful real estate agent, fit Lucas's typical victim profile. The police began discreetly monitoring her home and office, ensuring they remained undetected and didn't alert Lucas. Monica, completely unaware of the looming danger, continued her daily routine, oblivious to the fact that her image might already be in one of Lucas's files. Meanwhile, Charlotte remained an active part of the investigation, helping the police piece together Lucas's habits and behaviors. Her contributions became crucial in predicting his next moves. However, this role also attracted new threats toward her. One day, Charlotte received an anonymous message. Its contents were a chilling warning that she would face danger if she continued cooperating with the police. When Abby Morgan reviewed the message, she realized Lucas had somehow discovered Charlotte's collaboration with law enforcement. This warning created a sense of urgency among the police, who now knew time was running out. The police decided to use Monica as bait to capture Lucas. The operation was fraught with risks, but seemed like the only option. Monica was informed of the situation and placed under tight security, while her office was equipped with hidden cameras to monitor any suspicious activity. Even so, Lucas remained extremely cautious. He continued to avoid surveillance cameras, used forged documents, and changed cars regularly to evade detection. His behavior grew increasingly erratic, making the investigators' job more difficult. However, they managed to track one of his fake social media accounts, which he was using to communicate with Monica. Based on this information, a coordinated operation was launched to capture him. But Lucas, as if sensing the danger, suddenly changed course, shut off his phone, and disappeared just hours before his scheduled meeting with Monica. This unexpected twist sent the investigators into a frenzy. It was clear that Lucas was preparing for a new move, one that might be even more dangerous. Hearing of the operation's failure, Charlotte's anxiety grew. She knew Lucas had become more unpredictable, and that his next step could be the most decisive one yet. Despite the threats, she continued to share everything she knew with the police, determined to help catch him before it was too late. The police heightened security measures around Charlotte Hayes, fearing that Lucas Munir might attempt to approach her again. Meanwhile, investigators discovered that Lucas had checked into a small hotel in San Francisco under the alias Mark Randall. This was the first solid lead that could lead to his arrest. The operations team began planning meticulously to ensure Lucas would not escape. The hotel's layout was studied carefully, and a detailed plan was crafted. The floors adjacent to his room were evacuated, while plainclothes officers stationed themselves in the lobby and hallways. The mission was clear. No mistakes this time. Charlotte, who was under heavy protection, was informed about the operation. However, painful memories of Lucas's ability to evade the police before heightened her anxiety. Despite the reassurances of the authorities, she couldn't shake off her fears. At 5 a.m., the operation commenced. The tactical team approached the floor where Lucas was believed to be staying, but upon breaching the room, they found it empty. On the table, there was an open laptop and a plane ticket for a late-night flight to Mexico. Investigations revealed that Lucas had left the hotel just minutes before the police arrived. The laptop contained messages with instructions for obtaining fake documents and a detailed plan to flee to a country without an extradition treaty. The police realized they had been moments away from capturing him, but once again, Lucas had outsmarted them. Days later, the police received reports of another woman disappearing in San Francisco. Suspicion began to grow that Lucas was involved in this case as well. When Charlotte heard the news, she felt that a final confrontation with the man she once trusted was drawing ever closer. Around the same time, Charlotte received an anonymous text message. "If you continue cooperating with the police, you'll be the next target." Terrified, Charlotte informed her attorney, Abby Morgan, who immediately reported the threat to the police. Security around Charlotte was further tightened, and her safety became a top priority. A month passed since Lucas Munir's last known sighting. Charlotte continued her life under constant protection, but she never felt truly safe. One day, her security team arrived to find her apartment door slightly ajar. Inside, the scene was horrific: overturned furniture, scattered belongings, and clear signs of a struggle. In the bedroom, they found Charlotte's lifeless body. Charlotte's murder was a devastating blow. She had been the key witness in the case and the only person capable of exposing the full extent of Lucas Munir's crimes. However, the police found crucial evidence at the scene: fingerprints and footprints belonging to Lucas. Despite losing her friend, Abby Morgan continued working with the police, helping to organize the evidence and providing every possible resource to push the investigation forward. The police, now more determined than ever, vowed to capture Lucas Munir. Yet he continued to elude them, using fake identities and aliases to stay hidden. New evidence has helped reconstruct Lucas Monroe's escape route following his disappearance from a San Francisco hotel. Investigations revealed that he used an illegal network to obtain a new passport and flee abroad. The evidence showed that he headed to Central America, exploiting the lack of extradition agreements to stay out of justice's reach. Meanwhile, the murder of Charlotte Hayes sparked a wave of outrage in the media. The public demanded immediate action, criticizing the police for failing to protect the key witness. The case became a symbol of the failure to deliver justice, provoking widespread discontent and calls for reform. Investigators worked tirelessly, but Lucas, with his sharp intellect and meticulous planning, always stayed one step ahead. Reports about his whereabouts were conflicting, ranging from Belize to Panama, but none led to definitive conclusions. His ability to disappear without a trace underscored his danger and cunning. For the victims' families, this dead end only deepened their pain. They lived with the wounds of losing their loved ones, searching for answers to the senseless devastation. Charlotte, once a symbol of bravery in the case, became a tragic emblem of a preventable loss, a bitter reminder of how trust can become a tool for betrayal. Despite mounting pressure, the investigation hit a wall. Lucas vanished like a ghost, leaving behind fear and destruction. The case became one of the darkest chapters in police history, a story filled with sorrow and delayed justice. For Abby Morgan, Charlotte's closest friend and attorney, the pain was deeply personal. She vowed to continue the fight for justice, ensuring Charlotte's sacrifice would never be forgotten. Every unsolved case linked to Lucas Monroe strengthened her resolve to reform the witness protection system. Yet, the shadow of Lucas Monroe haunted everyone. His face, now plastered on wanted posters, became a living nightmare for those who had encountered him. The wounds of his victims, both physical and psychological, remained as evidence of his horrific crimes. A harsh reminder of how darkness can infiltrate even the brightest lives. This story serves as a warning to us all to stay vigilant, to question blind trust, and to demand accountability from those in power. If you or someone you know is facing suspicious behavior or psychological manipulation, do not ignore it. Speak up, take a stand, and advocate for laws that protect the most vulnerable in our society. Most importantly, keep the voices of victims like Charlotte Hayes alive, and use their stories as a catalyst for change. Justice, even when delayed, must not be denied. This is a call for all of us to act,